even empathize from that standpoint because I get it.
Yeah.
Like because we all living in the same shit.
Welcome.
Welcome back, man. Welcome back. We back at it.
Episode 19.
Yes, sir. Turn the fork, man. We coming to you from we on tour, man.
We on tour.
First stop of a 50-city tour.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Slightville, USA.
All day. All day. Thank y'all for tuning in, man, again.
I want to give a shout out to Life Socks.
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure if you gonna be able to see that, but
man, these joints is moving.
he flamed up.
Yeah. Pause. Pause, my nigga.
Yeah, flame mean different shit for sure.
It do. Nuance. It's nuance, dog. You gotta cover all, because you know people out there I knew it. I knew them niggas.
Just well, at least they did it on camera.
Yeah. At least
they opened. They really came out.
Right.
They came out.
Yeah, no matter they men all right. Men talking about their feelings all right. Anyway, so what's good, man?
Struggling. Or at least the concept of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what kind of brought us to the conversation now. Just, I want to make sure I'm clear when I say this.
All right.
We live in a racist/white supremacist society. Flat out. Yeah. Now, that's not the universal definition or the universal dynamic that is taking place.
Right.
But when you look at how we like to label things and, classify it in certain aspects, like this is the predominant social force that is actually driving behavior, assigning value, allocating resources to one group over another based on basically skin color, right?
Yeah.
And so through the process of doing that and ultimately dividing people into groups and having them focus on that group, each group is going to struggle.
Yep.
And they're going to struggle. Some people are going to struggle in different ways, but the concept of that group being oppressed is going to be something that's universal.
Yeah.
And so when you see Black people marching, talking about very legitimate gripes with racism and white supremacy, when they're speaking from their position of Blackness, other groups can sometimes feel as if the same forces that are oppressing them isn't oppressing them because they're dealing with different aspects of the oppression.
Right. Dog. I agree with everything you're saying. But I think there's an effort to separate and pit against one another to hide the larger thing, which is really economics. We all, coming from a place of suffering, and the same suffering that affects us affects them, but differently, right? To me.
But that can even show up differently, right?
Absolutely.
So like access, privileges, violence, physical, economic, emotional. So like and that's what I mean. So like if Black people are getting murked by police, right?
Right.
There is a force that is producing that onto the Black people. So when they're having conversations and talking about their oppression, that might not necessarily be the same way that it's showing up for Asian folks. not with the same level of urgency or frequency, right?
Right.
But so when black people are stepping, because I want to make sure that we're tiptoeing around a lot of things, and I think what I'm ultimately trying to say is that people are being oppressed no matter what group you identify with.
Yes. Yes.
And there is a singular force that is responsible for that oppression.
Yes.
And so what the individuals in the group do, since they are at quote unquote odds with the perceived power of the oppression, they also find themselves fighting against one another.
Yes.
Because the oppression tells them that there are limited resources, right? And so the individuals within the groups have to fight for those limited resources.
Right.
And generally, one of the ways you fight for limited resources are how well you can articulate your struggle as the individual.
Yes. You mean the individual or the group?
The individual group.
Okay.
As the individual group. So when black people are talking about their oppression, there is a specific way in which black people have to speak to that oppression.
Right.
When Asians speak to their oppression, there is a specific way in which Asians have to speak to their oppression.
And it's specific because it's different.
Right.
I mean, that historically is different, and the reasons and the driving force behind and I hear what you're saying when you say oppression, but I do think that there is a history of America, a history in America of white Americans across geopolitical economics planes, their thought processes and their ideology about different cultures. Well, black people, Asian people, South Americans, whatever the quote unquote race or culture is, they've been programmed to think a certain way about them, and they've been programmed that way for about 5 generations. Mm-hmm. So the thing that we suffer from is the same thing that they suffer from, but they're just on a not really the opposite end, but they're just on a different end, because our struggles are more alike than they are different, but we're told that they're separate.
In the root of it, it's the same.
Yes.
At the core root.
Yes.
And that's what I mean when I say because you got this anti-Asian Pacific Islander, anti-Asian hate thing going on right now, right?
Right.
What does that mean?
Exactly. Yes.
Like literally, what does it mean to say anti-Asian hate?
Right.
Where is that coming from?
Yeah.
Black people didn't create that shit.
No.
Where is the black hate come from?
Right.
Black people didn't create black hate.
Right.
Now, so there's certain, so when you have, what is it about violence and the concept of that that makes us feel that it has to be driven to a group? Because when it's driven to a group, because that's why I think what I'm saying, the only time race benefits is when you are, and I'm going to make sure this might not even, I got to say it out loud and then think it because it just came to my mind. The only time race really benefits you is when you're trying to, or to engage in the concept of it, is when you're seeking a benefit or when you're seeking some type of benefit or an acknowledgement of something. Because we all want to talk about being a part of a human race.
Right.
Or a part of like this bigger thing.
Right.
But when some shit happens, it's happening because you black. Or when
Right.
you want to enter into a space and you be like, hey, as the only black person here, I think I need to add a context.
Right, right, right. But we don't want people to see us as black first, but we do acknowledge it when it's convenient or when it's a benefit. You're right.
And I think we do want people to see us as black because there's value in it when we say there's value in it.
Okay, explain that.
So we have a unique experience in this country.
Yes.
Which gives us a unique perspective.
Yes.
That perspective has value.
Yes.
And so in certain instances and in certain ways that benefits us. So
yes.
From that perspective, we want to be seen as black.
Right.
But we don't want to be seen, because I think when we're talking about being seen as black, the whole concept and idea of being seen as black is a stereotypical value that society has placed on it. Because when we say we're black, that don't mean the same thing to everybody.
Right.
It's like when you tell a white person, hey, I'm black.
Right.
To us, that means something very specific.
Yes.
But when they hear it, or maybe even when they repeat it, they're saying something different.
Yes.
They don't understand the value of it.
Yes. Because they don't, I mean.
And to a large degree, some of us probably don't either.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, we don't really either. And when we say it, depending on the situation and who we are, it could mean various things. Like dog, this is complicated and it's nuanced and it's large. And it's hard to generalize, or it's hard to put like a definition on it all because it's so different. You're right. Our experience in this country makes us unique, and Black people all over the diaspora, their experiences wherever they are makes them unique to that place. But us being the size that we are, and not just slavery, but what came after slavery, and the violence that ensued after slavery, and then the Jim Crow thing, and then the Black Flight, which led to poverty and ghettos and urban environments, and then the drug epidemics that stretch all the way back to heroin, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And then all of those things, the veteran, and then the successes that the fact that we did have our own fully functional communities.
Yeah.
And our own fully functional colleges and universities. We were churning out very successful Black people, right? We were family. We were skilled. We were all things. We were everything from doctors all the way through to scientists and all. So we were all those things. But then, as time went on, we also became something different, right? While all those things are still happening, but we also became violent, and we also turned culturally violent. Like, it became okay to be violent. We looked up to, we admired people who were uber violent and destructive, and we admired that. That became our heroes. So all those things from that to end is a unique experience, and we come from all sides of that. So when we talk about being Black, we talk about either one part of that or that experience in total. I mean, Black people in America drive culture all over the world, but we a lot of times don't even recognize, what that actually means and what that actually is and what it comes from. So we still sit in a position a lot of times of victims because that's what we've come to know.
So in my mind, when I think about identifying as a Black man,
right,
when I'm telling people that, what I'm saying is I have a specific experience
Yes.
living, being born, and having a lineage, and having the lineage that has been subjugated, persevered, and continues to persevere, and has always persevered throughout whichever period of time. They haven't maybe not have always done whatever it is that they do right or perfect, but what the fuck does that mean anyway, right?
Exactly.
So I'm saying something very specific when I'm saying that. And a lot of times when I'm using it, it's pretty, because they can look at me and tell that I'm black.
Right.
So when I say I'm black, what am I really saying?
Right.
And I think that is an answer that the answer is different when you're talking about an individual and when you're talking about a community or a group. Yeah. And the group dynamic of black is beneficial when you're competing.
Yeah.
Or when you're building.
But some people say that they're black as a crutch to something. Like when I hear people say, you're doing that because I'm black, that to me says, or just because of the color of my skin, like that to me says, or I'm more than just, you can't treat me. That to me always speaks to that is a reason to treat someone. You know what I'm saying? Like that doesn't speak to me like.
You mean as the person, as the person who's saying it?
Yeah, it almost feels like you're placing yourself at a, and I could be wrong, dog. Like you always say, we don't know what the fuck we talking about. But it always feels to me that you're placing yourself as a victim or lesser because now you're in a position that someone can treat you a certain way and you think that they're doing that because you're a certain thing. Not because they're their way, is because you're your way. You see what I'm saying?
No.
So, okay, so if I say he did that to me because I'm black, I could say he did that to me because he's an ass, right?
I see what you mean.
It's nothing wrong with me. That's him. You know what I'm saying? So him doing that because I'm black ain't got nothing to do with my blackness. It got something to do with him.
Right. And so that's when you start getting into, that's when you go down into a rabbit hole. True. When you have them, especially when, because this is something that happens a lot.
And I'm saying that to say that when you say you're black and other people say that they're black, those definitions could mean something different whenever they say it.
I see what you mean. I didn't even think about that. That is a piece of it too.
Right, right.
And the identification with the label is so valuable to us, meaning we're gonna, I guess for the lack of a better word, it's a card, right? You get to play. Yeah. And you can play it whenever you want to play it.
However you want to
play it.
Even when you dead ass wrong.
When you want to suspend logic,
right.
When you don't want to think,
right.
When you don't want to stretch out and expand and listen to somebody else's perspective, right. You doing that shit because I'm black.
And you don't want, dog, that.
But if I want to shut you up,
right? Because I don't want to hear the truth.
I would be like, I'm black and I ain't gonna deal with this.
But see, I think that's the dog. I don't know if that's the crux of this conversation. Like, what is that?
So this is the over identification with the label, because we live in a world that there are certain things that trump shit. So right. It don't matter what you say or what your intention was.
Or even what the truth is.
I'm saying what it is.
Right.
And so you just got to eat that. And that is with any motherfucking label.
That is clean.
So
That is
if
clean.
I'm gay,
Yeah.
which I'm not, if I feel like you said some homophobic shit,
Right.
it's homophobic.
Right.
And you got to sit there and,
Right.
and depending on where you say it, you
Right.
might need a public apology.
A couple of them.
Same
you might
with
go to tour.
Same, like every group. And so what ends up happening,
Yeah. Yeah.
so if you a hammer, every motherfucking thing is a nail, bro.
Yep.
Everything
Yep.
is a nail.
Yep.
And the challenge with the need to identify with the group
Yeah.
further alienates you from all of the other groups.
Yep.
Because the force that is pressing on everything is
Right.
the same force. And you and you'll fuck around
Yeah.
and end up fighting with the groups
Yes.
and not the force.
Exactly. That's dog. That is clean. That is clean.
And the force is sitting back there like, let me go. And you know what the force does? The force creates the groups.
Right.
So now you got intersectionality.
Yeah.
Now you not only do you got a group for gays,
Yeah.
now you got a group for black gays.
Yeah.
And not only do you got not only do you have a group for gays and black gays,
Yeah.
now you got gay black gays.
Yeah.
Well, black gays from the Northeast who were born on odd numbers.
Yeah.
Every group can be broken down into a subgroup.
Yeah.
Because what ends up happening, and what I feel like, and this is what I feel like with some of the lettering and some of the gender and non-gender conforming and having hundreds of different variations of things, is that it makes the individuals feel better.
Right.
To a certain point.
Right.
But it's not addressing the force because the groups start to compete with one another.
Yep.
And because they're competing for the limited resources. They're not competing to end the force.
But do you think they're competing for attention?
Well, attention gets you the resources.
Facts.
The attention, this is why. So when you look at AAPI,
That's clean.
You gotta build it up.
Yeah.
And so we're not competing.
Yeah.
We're not, let me rephrase that. We're not fighting to kill the force.
Right.
We're fighting amongst each other
Yeah.
to compete for the resources that have been crumbs, basically.
From where? The force.
From the racism, white supremacist system.
Right. From the force.
From the force.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the force will create anything to distract you from the force.
Exactly. And give you anything to distract you from the force.
Oh, you want an anti-Asian hate bill? Sure, we'll give you an anti-Asian hate bill.
Right. But we still hate you.
We still hate you.
Right.
And what happens is this. The black people will sit there and look at the anti-Asian hate bill and be like, how the fuck you letting these?
Right.
And then every derogatory name. And you
All
be
of
like,
them.
we've been dealing with this shit for 400 years,
Right.
and you got these motherfuckers
Right.
sitting up here and get something after 1 year?
Right.
Like, where does that, and now you beefing with each other.
That is it. That is it.
And they know we've been sitting up here with, our proverbial hands out saying, hey, hook a brother up for 400 years.
And there, again, dog, I can't say this enough. There is profit in that beef. There are eyes and clicks and media attention and advertising that now they're going to start putting more Asians in commercials and try to get those dollars to be the first to recognize and get those dollars. There's money to be made off of all of that beef and all of that tension. So that shit is fed and is stoked, dog. While the force that created it continues.
And so
it eats off of that.
I have heard numerous black people be like, fuck them Asians. I have.
Oh shit!
I have.
That is a fact, dog. You can't.
I
that
have.
is a fact. Multiple.
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 I have heard
Yeah. Yeah.
Numerous
Yeah.
black people
Yeah.
be like, fuck them poor white people.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
And
fuck them gays. Go down the
fuck
list.
them gays.
Go down the list.
And the challenge, because the challenge with the struggle is the other groups was like, as long as it ain't me.
And that is a clean statement, because we say, I don't know, I can't generalize it, but a lot of times the overall perception and feeling is that where were they when we were, right? And there, I mean, you know, who knows? But, you know, there is that vibration, and that's feel. And again, dog, I'm gonna say this again. A lot of times those beefs among each other, they're legitimate, but they just need to be understood and worked out, right? There's no conversation about how to understand that A, it's bigger than both of us. There's a force that's happening that's really causing all of, you know what I'm saying? That's really creating this separation. And B, we need to talk and understand what's happening, because they're legitimate beefs.
And I'm gonna push back on you, bro. There is no motherfucking legitimate beef between groups. They are manufactured beefs. If we in prison,
right,
and we trying to be free,
right,
do I have a legitimate beef now? Unless you a goddamn snitch, or you're counterproductive to our trying to get free from the prison.
But okay, let's talk about that. So and again, this is, I'm not generalizing all of anybody does anything. I can't do that. That's ridiculous. So that's not even where I'm coming from.
Same.
But I will say a fact of the matter that there have been communities of color that have Asian influences, stores, everything. And those stores have not, let me push back on that. I've grew up with Asian stores around me. Wonderful people, cool people. I've played with their kids. Mm-hmm. We've kicked it. I know them. I walk in the store. They're part of the community, right? I know their name. Hey, Mr. So-and-so, what's going on? Hey, little so-and-so, what's happening? How much is this? They've given me, like when I ain't have enough money, I've seen them give to people who were struggling, right? Asian dudes, Asian cats, part of the fabric of what's happening. But the opposite of that is also true. Mm-hmm. So in those cases, is there a legitimate conversation that needs to be had, and understanding that you should be a part of this community if you're gonna eat off of us?
So, and here's
in some way.
So
some way.
It should be a conversation, but it's not a beef.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Okay, I used the wrong word. You're right.
It's not a because when you remove, and this is what I'm talking about with the race thing and about just looking at it from color. They're in prison too.
True.
They just playing a different piece.
That is right.
In the prison puzzle.
That's clean.
They're not free. They might be more free or more able to move and to navigate the system. And
they move differently from how they were taught to move differently.
Because again, it's a competition for resources.
Right.
Mostly everybody, bro. And mostly everybody is just trying to stay out of the way.
Right.
And take care of their family as best as they can.
That is true.
And eat, have a little fun every now and then.
Yeah.
Have a little wine, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Have dance. They trying to take care of shit.
Right.
And so some of us have opportunities to do that in other areas. Because again, we're all given a certain, I don't want to say that. So even when you get them, Mr. Chang, Mr. whoever is in your spot,
right,
got the carry out, got the liquor store, got the pawn shop, got whatever.
Yeah.
he was able to get placed there by something.
Right.
And so we're supposed to beef with him and make him the person to yell at and call names to and
Clean.
And do all of that kind of shit. But the reality is, how that motherfucker get here? What kind of policies were in place that even gave him access to make it? But there was something that led to that. And what condition were the black people in that even allowed that to come into their spot?
That's all clean, but
without having conversations.
Right. So that, again, dog, it's a spectrum, right? It's a full ass spectrum of most time, well, I can't say, man. In my experience, let me go there. I've never had a problem with whoever owns whatever, wherever they want to own it. It's however you want to do it, that's cool. But again, and it really boils down to people. Some people are assholes, and they treat people who they don't value or don't think that is a value to them as such, as less than them.
And that's everywhere.
So that's everywhere, and that's everything. And then some customers are assholes. They coming in with their own, you know what I'm saying? They don't know this man, what he been through, how he got this space or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And they ain't have no aspirations to own anything. So they just want to come in there and cause conflict, because that's what they do in their lives just in general, right? So all of those things working together, man, creates an atmosphere that when you start to put them in the groups and separate groups out, then you can start to have conversations like how these motherfuckers get stores in our communities, right? But that's not really that creates a beef. But the issue is, why can't we need to connect, because we're all in the same thing.
But we can't, it's hard for us to connect because our identification, and this is the challenge when we're talking about identifying with the group.
And what we think the other group is.
Right. Because it cuts us off. Like when we say, a lot of what I heard people say about what's going on with the Asian, and don't get me wrong, but I think a lot of that shit is manufactured. I don't think it all is what it is. I mean, people get hurt, people are harmed, especially when you see some of the black people who are doing it are like homeless people. Like, I don't know what any of that shit means.
Yeah.
But I feel like I feel like a lot of the verbiage and the language and the rhetoric, propaganda for a large part, is there's more to it than just that.
Right.
So I see it as a part of just manipulation to some degree, propaganda.
Right. But, and we're definitely not saying that it's okay.
No, not at all.
To be violent against anybody.
Not at all.
Randomly. And for you to be violent against somebody randomly that you don't know speaks to a mental illness that you have. That's not okay for anybody. And it's not, you can pick a reason to be violent to somebody, but if you do it to somebody who you absolutely have no idea who it is, you on something else. But go ahead.
True. And so when we're talking about these groups and identifying with the labels, that is precisely the reason why the other groups be like, as long as it ain't me.
Right. Right.
It's all the same shit.
Right. Right.
And when you're looking at it and identifying with a group, you also are less likely to criticize the motherfuckers within your group.
True. That's crazy.
Because you're like, oh, it's just a group.
Yeah.
And what it also does is it challenges your position when you got to go in front of other groups and talk about, well, can you explain why the mayor was black and this still happens?
Right.
Can you explain why the chief of police was black? Can you explain why the governor was black? Can you explain why 70% of the people on the police force are black?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter what the fucking color of the person is.
Right.
The system is going to harm people.
Yep.
The system is going to subjugate them.
Yep.
The people who they use to carry out that shit is gonna wear multiple motherfucking uniforms. And the uniform is really just your skin.
Right.
Your uniform is your skin.
Right.
And so, and what you carry out, the objectives that you carry out are going to be based on people's skin color.
Right.
So I can use a person with black skin to carry out a racist motive.
Right. Right.
I can use
racist
yellow skin.
Yep.
I can use white skin. I can use any color. So don't talk to me about what the fucking color is of the person who's carrying it out.
That's deep.
Because there has to be a bigger thing that I'm focusing on other than just the color of the skin of the person. Because anybody can do it.
But see, here's the thing though. Here's the thing about that, dog. That's clean. But it's easy because that is true. Dog, we've been doing this race marching shit, man, since the 50s. That's the easiest, most, I wouldn't say unproductive. It's the easiest thing to do because you can do it and then go back to the life that you were living. In order for us to have real conversations about it, we got to look at ourselves and how the same, like you said last time, man, how the same system creates that white guy to do that is the same system that creates us to do the same thing. And those are hard conversations, dog, that we as black people aren't willing to have. And then, shit, I'd venture to say that them, whoever else, the whatevers, they're not willing to have those conversations either. Because it's also easy to perceive someone off of what you see on TV, what you heard about, what you don't. Because a lot of times these people don't even know black people, don't even understand. They just know what they see on TV. Mm-hmm. They don't, what you said, all of us are just trying to have a good time, feed our families, be happy, be the best that we can be on some levels. All of us have struggles. Everybody has struggles. Everybody has issues that they're dealing with. But we don't see each other that way. We see each other as what someone told us that they are.
And it's like you said one of the times, man, you were like, we all are sick, bro.
That's right.
And it is, and I remember reading, I don't remember if it was Krishnamurti or somebody said, it is not a sign of health to find yourself maladjusted to a sick society.
Right.
And so it's something along those lines. We're gonna find it.
Yeah.
But it's deep because what they're basically saying is we live in a fucking sickness that we have gotten used to.
That's right.
And because we've gotten used to it,
that's right,
we don't even realize how sick this shit is.
Yep.
Like, so even the notion of some of the things that go on that we just accept.
Yep. Yeah.
That is a sign of illness.
And even the fact that a lot of times we think that we aren't ill in the society, but the fact that we accept that shit speaks to our own illness. And the illness goes in multiple ways and multiple directions.
You're right, bro.
You know what I'm saying?
And that's why you can't drink Kool-Aid, bro, and not get the sugar.
That's right.
The taste tastes good,
right?
But you're still getting hundreds of fucking grams of sugar.
Even when you know it.
And we're all drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yep.
So the idea, but here's another thing, because I've been thinking about this shit for way too long and I ain't got all the answers. And I've been reading and listening to way too much shit. There is a reason why we are continuing to experience what we are experiencing, despite our attempts. And I get the feeling that the more we dig our heels into our groups, the worse it's going to get.
Yeah.
Because the system created the groups.
Yes.
For a reason.
Yes.
To divide.
Yes.
And if we continue, we're digging our heels into something that did not have our best interests in mind.
Yep.
It does not serve you to identify with black.
Yeah.
It does not serve you to identify with white.
Right.
It does not serve you to identify with Asian. It serves you to identify with human. Now, that's some high level, perfect world type shit, right?
Yeah.
I'm still a black man. I want to make sure I'm, but my point is, in saying that is, if my identification with all those groups are oppressed in some way, shape, or form by force, and if my identification with that group gets so strong till it becomes almost like a religion, where it causes me not to see the pain and the struggle and the humanity and empathize with those other groups,
that's right.
We are all going to fail.
Yep.
Because there is a thread that is binding us all, that we are not connecting to, that is furthering us away from one another.
Yep.
And when we do that, that force wins.
That is right. And dog, that's deep. I was reading a book, man. I don't know if I was reading a book or saw it on, I don't know what the fuck. It might have been a book. But it talked about how when slavery was happening, in the beginnings of slavery, how white people who weren't landowners, white people who weren't landowners back in those days, late 1800s, were 95% of the white people who were here. Landowners made up, man, less than 3%, or plantation owners or big, large slave holders made up less than 3% of the country, right? Kind of like it is now.
Sound like some Howard Zinn shit.
Possibly. And that means the wealth circulated around those, right? So the majority of white people were like, we are paying taxes on shit that we ain't, you know what I'm saying? And there was a movement that, quote unquote, poor, which wasn't poor at the time, it was just, white people and black people were really sort of getting to understand that we have a common thing happening. Why aren't we working out? We are the majority. Why are we here, serving this 3% on these levels? That's when they started to, maybe it was later on in the later 1800s, but that's when they started to have conscious campaigns to, make white people think that we're all the same. So 3% made it seem like the white people who were the 97% were the same as the 3%, right? So they identify as white. That's when the word white, because before that, there was no word white. You were from Poland, or you were from England, there was no white word. It doesn't exist. And that the black people are a threat to you. So, and you should be afraid of them, and they're oversexed, and they're violent, and that's when those groups started to split up for a purpose as to not identify what is really going on, right? The force that's happening. So we continue that to this day, and we move further and further. We dissect these groups into smaller groups: black women, millennial black women, older black women,
East Coast millennial,
right, Southern. You know what I'm saying? All these things continue to separate us, and if we don't understand that I can be black and you can be whatever you are, I can recognize my experience in this, but we are the same. There's no difference between us. Really, we are part of the same struggle, part of the same sickness, part of the same fuckery that's been going on for a very long time. And there's other things that are driving us into these separations. And what you said, dog, is true, because if I can't see me in you, dog, it's no way that we can come out of this shit.
Bro, and it's like when you say, fuck them Asians. It's like when Asians say, fuck them niggas. They ain't got shit to do with us.
They ain't got shit to do with me.
We're not, and we are at, I feel like we are at a pivotal time in this country where, and even the identification with the country, That's also another thing to divide.
Yep.
And they understand that, man.
Yep. It's
Like when
all
you,
game.
like all of these people, they go where the fuck they want to go. They do what they want to do. They buy what they want to buy. They just move things around.
And they sell that to motherfuckers that they don't believe. They don't believe that shit. They sell it.
They don't believe it. Like, dude, they have what's the dude's name? What's the brother's name? He has the YMCA, the first black YMCA in DC. Anthony Browder.
Oh yeah.
He's got the book called The Browder Files.
He has a. I didn't know he owned a Washington.
The YMCA, the first black YMCA.
I didn't know that.
Is in DC. That's where his spot is out of, his offices. But I think I could be wrong. Motherfuckers be like, no, it's actually the second. Shut up. I hate people, dog. I hate them motherfuckers. And I would talk about being together. I'd probably do the same.
Right, exactly.
I'd probably do the same. I'd be somewhere, be posting underneath the thread. You know that was actually the second.
Right.
He didn't get it until 19.
Hey, man.
Like, you just shut up.
Shout out to them too. Go ahead if it's wrong.
Yep.
Let us know. Let us know we wrong. Fuck
it. Let us know. He has a tour called Egypt on the Potomac.
Yeah.
Where he has basically gone and gotten all of the Egyptian influence of the construction and design of Washington, D.C.
Wow.
And you get to go around
Yeah.
D.C., and he's got the whole history of D.C. and the architecture and the design laid out. And then he talks about how all of those white dudes being Masons all knew and all understood the African influence and intelligence and built that shit into the design.
Right.
And you look at it, and so when I went on the tour, I was like, this shit is crazy. You got the founding fathers of this country clearly 100,000% aware of the influence and intellect of the Nile Valley civilization.
Right.
And they knew it and understood and believed it so much that they built that shit in to the construction of their nation's capital.
It was part of their religion, dog.
It's basically.
Right.
But they'll let you believe
that's right.
That all of this inferior and about all of this intellect of a monkey type shit. But they clear. They like, we got the game from them. We can't, we know, but we can't let y'all know.
Right. Right. And again, dog, they not only sell it to us, they sell it to I mean, they sell it to the whole world.
But and this is what I mean. Even white people as a group suffer.
That's right.
And so
that's right.
Everybody is suffering.
Yep.
It's like a prison yard where everybody in the prison, the whites hang with the whites, the blacks hang with the blacks, the Muslims hang with the Muslims.
Yeah.
You know, and you got
always look for infractions.
You always looking for infractions. Like, it's just, and all of this shit I get from, brother Neely Fuller. I love him. I'm a faithful listener, follower, read his books. He basically says that there are only 3 types of races: white, non-white, and white supremacists. Now, some of this shit I don't necessarily subscribe to, but what he basically says is that we get caught up in all of these colors, in all of these barriers and boundaries. The people who really run this shit don't give a fuck about none of that. They use that to let us bicker with one another, right?
That is right.
And so
that is right.
But the idea of digging our heels and our teeth into these labels to such a degree where we're finding it hard to empathize with other people is problematic. And I can't speak necessarily from an Asian standpoint because I ain't motherfucking Asian.
Right.
But I know if you Asian, you know how y'all talk about black people.
Yeah.
I'm black, so I know how we talk about black people, about Asian people.
Yeah,
but
about black people. Yeah.
We talk about, when you in that group, white people know how white people talk about other groups, man.
Yep.
They know how they could either, and not talking about them or indifference is just as bad, by the way. Yeah. You ain't got to hear your mama say nothing, no hardcore shit. But indifference is just as bad.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not, and it's deeper than just empathizing, man, or not empathizing. It's we dig our heels in and we stand against other motherfuckers. So we express our own victimhood and make it the fault of another group, right? Sometimes we make it the fault of people in our own groups. And we start to separate ourselves more and more based on that victim-villain dynamic. And we never, ever understand that, you know, there's something larger than that that's happening, dog, that we're all, quote-unquote, victims of, or at least subjugated to. And we don't, that's hard, because then you would have to really, and you got to look at yourself too. But it's easy to say, hey, I'm the victim. I didn't do anything wrong. You guys are doing this to me. You know what I'm saying? And that's the easy way that's the American way.
And I understand, and I might get a little bit pushback for it, but I understand. I can only imagine being white and having this invisible, to me, unearned privilege, and like how just like things open up, and how like I can't imagine living in a world where being white is something like, when you hear some people, white people, and they be like, so what is it like being white? And they be like, I never think about being white. I can't imagine being a white person, never thinking about race in, let's say, 55, 60, 70 years. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, I'm living in a world, or I feel all of a sudden that I'm living in a world where everything is about my race, and I'm a piece of shit person because I'm white. That shit would probably throw me off a little bit. Yeah. As a white dude. So yeah. I even empathize from that standpoint, because I get it. Yeah. Like because we all living in the same shit. Right. And if I don't, we spend a lot of time, I can't even imagine what that's like.
But dog, that is clean. But there's a perception from groups that white people are all one thing, right? Most of the white people that float around are struggling like everybody else. You drive around this country, man, and you see the levels of dilapidated houses and trailer parks and all of those things. They're struggling. So for them to hear that they have some kind of supremacy is a fucking crazy concept to them, because they're like, supremacy? I'm living in a goddamn trailer. What supremacy I got? But I'm this motherfucking struggling. I might not think about my race because I'm around white people 99 to 100% of the time.
Black people the same way, but we think about being black. That's what I mean when I say
that's clean.
That's what I mean when I say like you don't
clean.
have to think about. It's not even something. Even though you might be
that's clean.
Even though you poor as a motherfucker, even though you trailer park Rick, and you somewhere and you just whatever, you still don't think about being white.
Right.
You're just moving.
Yeah, you still don't think about how you get pulled over, but how you interact with the police.
Like, yeah, even like, hey, Rick, what are you doing? Like, hey, man, I done fucking told you, man. Leave me the fuck alone.
Fuck off my property.
Get off my property.
Right. You right, dog. You right.
Thinking about race and the concept of that is an emotional toll.
Yeah.
Like even with Asians. Like I remember working at a job, and I was talking to this white lady, and I said, every time I go into the room, I count how many black people in the room. She was like, every time I walk into a room, I count how many women are in the room.
Yeah.
And I was like, you do the same thing? He was like, yeah. Because I was looking, and it was just me, and it was another black dude in the room, and it was like 20 people in there, and she was the only woman. And she was like, every room I walk into, I count and see how many women in the room.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, I asked, I was thinking, the white dude was the same. I was like, what do you notice in this room here? He was like, do You know how many white people in this motherfucker? She didn't count how many white people was in the room.
Yeah, yeah.
She didn't count how many black people was in the room. Only
Yeah.
way she would probably count how many black people was in the room is if we were 90%.
That's how it was too many.
It was too many.
It was five.
Like she
Five
might
too
not
damn
know
many.
what that number is.
Right.
But she know when she see it.
No, too damn many.
She know when she see it, this is a lot.
It's too many. You're right, dog.
So
You're right.
we're conscious of that constantly.
But here's the thing. So when I was coming up, man, growing up in the city, you know, I lived in a neighborhood before it was gentrified that was black. Police officers that policed the neighborhood, and this was in, you know, quote unquote hood. You know what I'm saying? We had dudes selling drugs, crackheads, all that shit.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a good neighborhood, right?
Right.
And you might have your occasional murder every now, but it wasn't like crazy.
I got you.
So the police who policed it were black. Very rarely you would have a white cop kind of pop up. And that was an anomaly, like, the fuck, who invited this guy? That means something was really wrong, you know what I'm saying? School I went to, my first few years was black. So in that sense, in my day-to-day activities, and maybe because I was a little younger, I didn't think about race in that way. But soon as and it only came to play when I became of an age that I can see the difference on TV, and I started to, you know, venture out into the world a little more, where I started to realize that I'm part of a different group. And from then on out, I've had those experiences. Like when I walk in a room, or when I'm on even when I'm on a Zoom, I'm looking like I'm the only black dude again. Like, okay, I get 1 out of 20, right? And you're right. They don't think about, because it doesn't occur to them. Their whiteness doesn't.
It's not something that they have to negotiate.
Right, exactly. Or something that they feel like they have to be aware of and act differently because of.
It's just because the world orients to them.
Exactly.
And because we understand that,
exactly,
we have to orient to the world.
Right.
To the best. And that has been exhausting to me. And the older that I've gotten, the least comfortable I am with it.
Yeah.
And it took me a while, bro. I remember when I was younger, I used to call myself Jim, bro. Like when I first got into the business world, like when I was like 20, I would say I was Jim. Hey man, this is Jim. No bullshit. I was funny. So yeah.
Dog, we do anything to fit. We do anything so that we don't have to explain ourselves or feel like that we are like something that they won't like or something that they will sort of, you know, we want to make them as comfortable as possible. And we spend careers doing that shit. Like, and you're right, dog, it got so exhausted at some point you're just like, man,
and then little Asians that I work with and shit, I'll be like, hey man, what's your name? What folks be like, Bo.
Yeah.
What's your real name, man?
Yeah.
He tells me your name. Like, is it okay if I call you your real fucking name?
Yeah, yeah.
And make these other motherfuckers call you by your real name.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
But I wanted to let them know.
Yeah.
I see you. I understand. But fuck that. You can be capable. You can be competent. And you can be yourself.
And dog, that's deep, because I think that a lot of times black people, when they come to that realization, that a lot of times we are inclusive, we see ourselves in the struggles of someone who feels like he has to change his name, right? Same with, you know, I work with South Asian dudes, right? Indian or Pakistan or whatever. And I'm same thing, man. What is your, I don't have to call you by a nickname, so motherfuckers, what is your name? If I need to learn how to pronounce it, God damn it, we going figure it out. And I'm gonna call you that. And I'm gonna make sure that, like you said, dog, I see you and I know who you are, and it's cool.
It's cool.
You don't gotta be nothing but who you are.
And they probably have never had somebody who they work with sit down, slow them down. Some of them got regular, I don't want to say regular. Some of them have American names or Americanized names, and that's cool too.
Yeah.
But a lot of them don't.
Yeah.
But I want to let them know, like, hey man, like I see you when you have like your name and that, like, and I'll do the same shit with black people.
Yeah.
Like if your name is Chiquisha, and you say to well, what's your name? My name is
Keisha.
Stacy, and she going by her middle name and shit. But when I get her email, it says Chiquisha Stacy Jenkins.
Right.
And I'll be like, I ask. I know sisters who don't like they ass, bro.
Yeah.
They got big old asses.
Yeah.
They don't like them.
Yeah.
Because people will fuck her. They think. Some people might be like actually looking twice or whatever the case may be. Because it's pronounced.
Yeah.
And they might have a black name to go along with it, and they don't. And they struggle with that, and it makes them feel a certain way because they understand that when they like all of this shit in our mind, like big ass plus ghetto name equal black.
Yeah.
And I'm trying my best to assimilate into a culture, and a part of our assimilating is cutting off from a large part of who we are. Yep. And that's not motherfucking cool.
It's not healthy.
You can't cut nothing off long enough without it dying or harming some other part of it. Yep. And now you don't know who the fuck you are at the end of the day. And I know we all over the place with shit.
Yeah. And but a lot of times, dog, even in those conversations with other people about seeing them is the first time that anybody has said that to them, but also it's the first time that because I know dudes who don't have any personal experience with black people. So they think black people are what they see on TV, or what they've seen coming up on TV. So that's their perception of black, or what they see in the street. And we can get a little wild in the street. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. They never had a conversation with a black person in a way that there was a commonality, a connection, an empathy, where they felt like, damn, this dude is really, he ain't gotta, and they see you a cool dude, you got on, you know what I'm saying? You one of them black people, you know what I'm saying? But they still see that you see them. Mm-hmm. And that changes, that could mean something down the line that could change something for them, or something that they teach their kids, that when their kids meet a black kid at school, and he can say, okay, well, we can all interact together. So, and that's how you break down those barriers, man, and seeing people and making them feel comfortable for who they are.
And I think to put a button on it, we are all a part of the same system. Yep. Some of us are going to suffer in different ways and at different times. Yep. And there's value in your story. Yep. And there's value with aligning and building and competing with like-minded people for justice. Yep. But just remember that in your effort to do that there are other people who don't look like you that are also struggling and in harm's way. Yep. And if your fight can be one that solves the problem from all and not fighting against each other, you'll solve all the problems with one fight. Yep. And maybe we feel like the fight is just too big, and that's why we want to fight for just prison reform, or we want to just fight for defunding the police, or maybe we just want to fight for, equal pay for equal women. It's like, how in the fuck are you going to change the value you have in a society, the overall value, just by giving you $100 on $100? You mean to tell me I can't move the goalposts again? In another way, somewhere else? Like how long do we want to pussyfoot around for the fight?
And it's a symptom, man. We talked about before. That's a symptom of a larger thing that's happening.
Do we want to be free, dog, or do we want to feel free?
We want to feel free. That's the reality of it, dog. You can say, at the end of the day, we want our group, our fraction of our group, to feel better for a minute.
Because if freedom is what you can buy, then we free. We can buy any motherfucking thing.
Anything you want, right. And we can attain anything, really. You know what I'm saying? But yet we don't, dog, part of that is seeing the similarities and the commonalities in each other. And also seeing the differences. And those differences are okay. We got cultural differences. And those differences are cool. And all of them aren't right. All of them aren't, nobody is perfect. And you can't expect nobody to be perfect as a culture, as a people, as a person. None of it, dog. We're all trying to struggle through this shit. None of us got this shit together. We all sick.
We're all sick. Remember that.
We all sick, dog.
We all sick.